The gold price is back to its all-time high, and the majors, they are making good money. Kinross, Agnico, and many others are close to the 2020 highs. The stocks went well up, and the junior mining stocks, they are still lagging behind on the other hand. That sounds like a good setup for risk-taking investors to do the due diligence right now and then to decide where could be the next opportunity of tomorrow. And today with me is Mike Burke. He is the VP of Corporate Development at a company called Sitka Gold. They have more than 1.3 million ounces of gold in the Yukon, high grade. Mike, first of all, thank you very much for your time. It's great having you. I'm really looking forward to this interview.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
So, Mike, before we dive into all the great things that you have regarding infrastructure, high grade, and your resource, obviously, let's talk a little bit about the market overview, right? I mean, you're in the industry yourself. You are right now in Whitehorse, in Yukon, the heart of gold mining, if you like, a little bit. What is your feeling about the sentiment right now? We see some majors having interest for the juniors. We see some, yesterday BHP announced another takeover. Is the M&A session starting right now? Does it look to you like we've seen the bottom already of the juniors and now, let's say, only going upwards? What is your view on the junior market?
Yeah, I certainly hope we've seen the bottom of the juniors. You know, if you do have a good project, you seem to be bouncing along and doing okay. And that's the case with us. We're not seeing all-time lows in our company. But yeah, with the gold price increasing, like many people have predicted, and no reason to see it really go down, it should maintain these highs. I think that mergers and acquisitions should be ramping up. We've seen a little bit of action in the market in that regard. So with the money that majors and even intermediate gold miners are making, right? It's the quickest way for them to add solid, good resources to their base is through acquisitions. So, you know, from a strategic point of view, if we were an intermediate miner and we had a whole lot of cash in the bank, that's certainly what I'd be doing, is looking at companies like Sitka Gold and others. You know, Snowline Gold is another Yukon company that, you know, is very interesting. Banyan, there's a lot of great companies up here with new and fairly solid resources. That's in Canada, first world jurisdiction. So I think mergers and acquiring some of the companies here as well as elsewhere. Yeah, they're sitting on a lot of money. It's time to deploy it, and I'm sure they're thinking about that.
Right. So, as you already said, if you were one of the middle tier or, well, major companies, you would certainly look for the juniors right now to add some ounces in the ground really cheap. And as you already said, Sitka could be one of these options. So maybe you just give us a brief overview. If you were one of these major companies, why would you look at Sitka? What makes it so exciting, and why are you part of the team?
Well, Sitka in that belt of rocks, the reason why I mentioned Dawson to Mayo is Dawson City, where the famous Klondike Gold Rush was, and Mayo, where a lot of people spilled over. There's been a lot of placer mining historically in that region. For the last 100+ years, we've seen a lot of infrastructure developed in here. So as far as the Tombstone Gold Belt goes, it has the best infrastructure. Our project, Sitka, we access it out of Dawson City. So you can fly into Dawson City. There's jet service there. They have a 5,000-foot paved runway. And then it's a 2-hour drive to our property. It's only, 30 kilometers as the crow flies from the highway. The highway goes by our property. You take a secondary gravel road. It's a good road into the project. That's where the power line is. So it's 30 kilometers away. So access is pretty critical in the Yukon. There's areas that have great access, and there's areas that don't have as good of access. And where we are located is really, I would say, a prime location. Dawson is the second largest city in the Yukon. Long history of mining, great service and supplies out of their companies. And then, of course, Whitehorse, it's been in the mining business for a long time. So Yukoners know how to operate mines and provide all the services to them.
Great. So when I'm talking to investors, I'm always trying to teach them that they should have some check boxes ticked before they invest into a company, right? So in your case, we already talked about the infrastructure. You've got, I believe, power line, and also, as you already said, you can access your project quite easy. You don't have to go through the jungle. You don't have to build a road. From what I've read, you can just drive there by car, which is a big advantage, especially for the majors. They don't want to build that. They want to have that up front. Also, you have more than 1.3 million of ounces in the ground. We're talking about kind of high grade, right? One of your best drill holes was more than 200 meters with 1.34 gram. That's kind of something. I mean, above from 200 meters, more than 1 gram. What is your feeling here for the future? Is there more?
Yeah, absolutely. We know there's more because that resource that we put out was in January of 2023. So it included all the drilling up to the summer of 2022. So that resource was put out. It was based on 11,000 meters of drilling and 40 drill holes. Since then, we've done we're at about almost the same, another 11,000 meters of drilling since then. Specifically looking at the Blackjack deposit. There's two deposits that encompass that 1.3 million ounces of gold, the Blackjack and the Eiger, and the Blackjack is the higher grade of the two. It's 900,000 ounces at a grade of 0.83 grams per ton. And you mentioned that one drill hole. We've had a number of other drill holes that intersected, 200 plus meters at better than a gram since we put out that resource. So the drilling's been focused on expanding the higher grade, the Blackjack deposit. And we're still doing that right now. We're doing our summer drill program. We still haven't defined the limits of this deposit. So that's our primary goal, is to do that. And we're still hitting really strong mineralization. So when we do upgrade our resource sometime in the future, it's pretty obvious that it's going to grow in size. And we're pretty confident that we should see a good increase in the grade as well, potentially with intersections like you mentioned. So these, it's a bulk tonnage, large deposit, and to see grades that are in the 1 gram plus range are, considered high grade. It's not a high grade gold deposit, but for this style of gold deposit, it's definitely a higher grade than we see in producing deposits like Victoria Gold. Their mine grade was 0.6 grams per ton. Fort Knox started out in that range. Right now, Fort Knox is mining 0.3 grams per ton. So you can see just that, incremental increase. If our grade is 25% higher than those mines when they started, that's a pretty nice margin on your profits and getting the mine started and paying off that capital cost.
And when do you expect to have that updated MRE? Do you expect it by 2024 already?
We haven't set a date on it. We're gonna, finish off our drill program this year. It's always a difficult decision. You put out a resource, you're never quite done drilling it off. We have a lot of other targets on our property too, because we just recently, expanded our property. I'm sure you saw that, where we acquired a batch of claims from Victoria Gold that completes the acquisition of the entire Clear Creek intrusive complex. And we have some high quality targets on that ground that we're going to go in and test this year. So, oftentimes when you put out a resource, people, take that as the potential of the property, but we're just starting to really understand and expose the potential on this project, especially with that recent acquisition.
Mm-hmm. And are you fully financed for your activities going forward, meaning especially the current drilling campaign?
Yeah, we are financed, and we do have enough money to complete this year's program. This project is scalable, and since we acquired that Victoria Gold ground, we would be able to bring more drills onto the property and speed up the process. And we've also earmarked a little bit of money for our copper mine project up in Nunavut. That's a new copper discovery that we've made. It's never been drilled and is a very attractive target. So we feel the time is right to put just a small amount of money to get some initial drilling into that as well.
All right, sounds good. So we ticked one or the other boxes, right? You do have a resource, and I think especially in kinds like we see it right now for junior mining companies, this is one of the most important things, right? Because this helps you to get money somehow. Companies without having a resource, they are suffering. But this is really an advantage in times like this. Talking about checking the boxes, I'm always want to know more about the management, right? You're part of the team, of the management team. Tell me a little bit more. First of all, why do you think you guys are the right people in the right spot? And the second thing, which is always important for investors, do you guys have skin in the game? Meaning, do you have your own money in the company?
Yeah. So just to give you a little introduction to myself, I'm a geologist as well. I've worked in the Yukon most of my career, 20 years as the regional geologist for the Yukon Geological Survey, so the government of Yukon. So during that career, I was fortunate to virtually visit every mine and exploration project and let people know about them. So I'm well versed in Yukon geology. When I joined Sitka Gold, 2.5 years ago, it was Core Co, our CEO, that asked me. Core, I met in the mid 90s when I worked for the Yukon government in that role. And he's a geologist as well. And so I've known him for many years. And he was working on a gold discovery that he made in the Yukon back in the 90s. So I really knew Core very well and his style and skill. So it was easy to join the company. It's a strong technical management team. The board of directors, Don Penner, president, he's another geologist. I actually worked on a project with Don, so very familiar with the folks involved in there. Recently, we added another independent director, Angus Campbell. He was the VP exploration for Sabina Gold and Silver. They sold that project to B2 Gold. Angus and I went to university together a long time ago, but anyway, so very strong technical team with a good financial background. So that's very important to move any company forward. So that's the basis where, when you're working on a gold deposit or any deposit, frankly, there's a general statistic out there that it's the seventh company that finally makes the discovery, because you're building on the success and the failure of those who go before you. If you can't learn from failures in this business, you're in the wrong business, because even if you have a drill hole that doesn't hit 200 meters of better than a gram, you have to understand why it didn't hit, and how to adjust to it. So that's a real strength that our company brings to it, is we're very deep in the geological and technical roles. And of course, Core, our CEO, has got a lot of financial background as well. So that's a real key strength of us.
Great. And do you have skin in the game as a management? Meaning, do you own percentage of the company?
Has about 10%.
In the end, all what matters is, are you in the same boat with the investors, right? Because if you make money, the investors make money as well, and this is what we all want in mining, growing together, right? Not just the resource, also the pockets, if you like.
Yeah, no,
um,
absolutely. It's really important for management to be
yeah.
involved. And yeah, yeah, we're in there. I'm cheering as hard as everybody else at Sitka Gold has success.
Yes, I agree on that. So we talked about a lot of things, and you already mentioned Victoria Gold and its Eagle mine, and we all know that there has an incident. Unfortunately, there was a yeah, failure with the heap leach plant. You can go into details if you like, but all of this has a little bit of a bad image for mining and especially for the Yukon. Do you expect there are any problems for the future in mining in the Yukon overall? And do you feel there could be a potential, yeah, hurdles for your company and exploration going forward in the future? Are you expecting any of these difficulties?
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate incident, the failure of the heap leach pad. They had a landslide that came off of it. As far as understanding what happened there and the extent of it, that's still an ongoing process. As you can appreciate, you have a failure at a mine site, you can't figure it out the next day. So that's kind of ongoing to understand the extent of the damage to the facility. as well as the extent of the environmental impact. So the company, Victoria Gold, the government, and the First Nations, they're all in there trying to figure that out. So the sooner we know that extent, the better we'll understand the future implications of it. In the short term, definitely it impacted our company and many others with a dip in the share price immediately when it happened, to in general in all Yukon companies. Maybe more specifically with us, because we acquired the Clear Creek property from Victoria Gold. Our press release was on the same day as the heap leach pad failure, so our names were tied together very closely. But with time, people have come to understand that our projects are 60 kilometers apart. They're really not related. We're exploration, there's mining, so that impact isn't the same with us. The long-term implications, I think that will be determined on, why did this heap leach pad fail? It shouldn't have. There's no doubt about that. So why did it fail? Was it in the initial design? Was it other factors? So once that is figured out, if there are changes to the regulation and how we construct heap leach pads or how we operate them, that's a great thing, because there's nobody in this industry that wants to see that happen again. And even like exploration, where I mentioned, if you drill a bad drill hole, you got to learn from it. It was a failure. It missed your high grade zone. You have to understand that. The same goes for mining. If we don't learn from our mistakes, we'd be, back in the dark ages. We wouldn't be mining like we do now. So we really hope that the impact of the Victoria Gold incident isn't as severe as it could have been, and that coming out of it, there's stronger regulations so that we never see that happen again.
Okay, that would be good. So you don't see any struggle for the Yukon mining industry in the long term, from what I get. I mean, sure, we need mining in the world, right? And Yukon is definitely one of the better places to be, especially when it comes to politics and everything around. So great. Maybe Mike, for the end, you can summarize a little bit. If someone would invest maybe today, right? What can he expect? What kind of news flow can he expect until the end of this year?
Yeah, well, the summer season, which we're in now, is when we do the greatest amount of drilling, and so that's where we're right in full swing. We've got drills going up at the project right now. As I mentioned earlier, if you look back at our press releases, on June 24th, we acquired, which is the last piece of the puzzle for the Clear Creek area. Clear Creek, there's a cluster of intrusions. We've made the discovery on our claims, but there's known intrusions with good potential and previous drilling on claims that Victoria Gold held. We were able to acquire those, thank goodness, just before the incident at Victoria Gold's mine, because that could have scuttled the deal, obviously. So we now have a really large land package that encompasses all the known gold-bearing intrusions in this Clear Creek area. And so now we're able to fully explore the entirety of the property. We're obviously happy with our claims, because we made 2 discoveries there, but the acquisition of this Victoria Gold ground adds another 4 high-quality drill targets in addition to the ones that we have on our claims already. So we weren't able to do that until we acquired those claims. So that is something that we're looking at now, at mobilizing out and starting to test this new ground. So that's a very exciting development. If you look at the map of our project, when you see that hole on that ground previous to that acquisition, it's a glaring hole. So it's a complete project now, and I think that bodes very well for the future for shareholders, as we have a bunch more targets that we can make new discoveries on, as well as for majors or intermediates when they're looking at Sitka Gold and the project. They can see that they're going to acquire this entire gold mining district, and that's a pretty important key.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, thank you very much. Just to summarize, you have an experienced management team. You do have access to power and road, which is especially in the Yukon a big plus. You have more than 1.3 million ounces in the ground, high grade, and you're expecting to grow the resource and potentially the grade as well in the future. You're currently in a drill campaign, but you're fully funded for this year. This is my understanding, and all of this sounds really good. Thank you very much for your insights. Is there any last words from the Yukon to Germany in the end?
Well, we're upgrading the runway in Whitehorse. They're extending it. Previously, we've had direct flights from Germany to the Yukon. So I think those are going to start up again next year. So it's easy for you folks to get over here and to explore the Yukon and see, not only exciting mining history, but modern mining and the future of mining in the Yukon. And it's a beautiful place to come. So I'd encourage you to all keep an eye on that progress, and you can take a direct flight from Frankfurt next year.
I'm definitely going to catch up on this kind of invitation. Mike, it was great having you. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.